So here's my review of Love. I'm gonna separate it into hits and misses. I know life is not like that. I know there's a lot of nuance, but that's how I'm gonna do it because it just makes things easier. So let's get started, shall we? So I'm gonna start with the hits. Well, let me start with overall. It's a good show, and throughout I watched the two seasons relatively quick. And I'm definitely going to watch the third one because I like the way how the second one ended. So I definitely recommend it. So because I recommend it, I will start with the hits. The first hit is the theme. The theme song is really short, but it's really catchy. It kind of rocks in a way, and it sticks with you. So every time it's on, I kind of want it to go longer. So and I like how it just after like an intro to the show, it just kind of interrupts everything, and it gets you going. It gets you motivated to watch the show. Another hit of it. Oh, and by the way, this is a mostly spoiler-free podcast, and if there's spoilers, I will definitely say it because getting spoiled at things suck. So anyway, another hit were the relationship dynamics, how the show expresses those dynamics of a relationship. I think it captured beautifully the stress of not being in a relationship, and then the stress of being in a relationship, and then the stress of keeping the relationship together. And especially when you have characters as I don't want to say extreme, but I guess as erratic as Gus and Mickey, especially Mickey. I mean, watching this show, you know that they're not necessarily the best match personality-wise for each other, and it creates so much conflict. So to see that and to see the stress of it is really, really good to watch, and it's just definitely well done. And it also shows how fragile our egos can be, and it's probably why people don't want relationships of any kind. People who are afraid of being in relationships, probably cite this as one of the reasons that they don't. And when and as someone personally who is not in a relationship at this time, when I see people who I know who are in a relationship and deal with this stress, I kind of feel like, wow, I'm gonna be content just to go home and not have to worry about any of this. But at the same time, it's also stress not being in a relationship because, some people don't want to be alone. I certainly don't want to be alone. So, and then the reason why the relationship dynamics of the show were expressed so well is because the acting was so good. The acting was realistic. I thought the dialogue was realistic. It seemed that it was there was a lot of improvisation there too, as is Judd Apatow's. If you watch enough Judd Apatow movies, he kind of has a stamp on it. So when you watch stuff like this, it's like, oh, okay, you can kind of tell Apatow does it. Now, there are good and bad things about Apatow, and then I will go into the things that I don't like about Apatow. But with the Apatow movies and the ones that are like them, the acting is good because it's improv and because it genuinely reflects the way people talk. There are the speaking patterns of the characters are realistic. There are stammers, words are repeated. It's kind of like how we talk in real life. And like I said, the improvisation can be a miss, which actually is a miss, and I'll talk about that later. And then most of the real life moments are just like that. It's real life. There's nothing too over the top. I mean, there are some exceptions, which will go into the misses, but it seems to reflect a lot of things that we can relate to, which is good. It's not anything extreme. It's not anything rare. It's something I think most of us can relate to. And also the what has to do with acting is the character work. So the acting is good, but the characters are good as well. So when you have good acting and good characters, that's what makes a good show. And there were definitely times that I was disgusted by the actions of the characters, but it's a big but. I wanted to see what happened next, and again, that's the markings of a good show. And it managed the characters in a good way too. You obviously have the main characters. You have Gus and you have Mickey, but then you have all the minor characters. So what the show did so well, it maintained focus on Gus and Mickey, but it gave the minor characters like Birdie and Randy just enough space for us to get to know them, but it didn't take us away from Gus and Mickey. And that was a big, I'm going on a little tangent here, but that was a big criticism that I've had of The Walking Dead recently, because what it would take focus away from the core characters and then devote the whole episode to characters who we don't necessarily know. And if we don't know the characters, the show becomes uninteresting, regardless of what you do with the characters, because you don't know them. So those are some of the hits of Love. And now I'm going to go into the misses. So, one miss is the casting, not the acting. The acting is really good. It's just the casting, and this seems to be a common thing on TV and movies that we're seeing. Now, this is coming from someone who thinks of himself as not a bad-looking guy, but an average-looking guy. I don't stop a room when I walk in. And I know looks are arbitrary, and this is my own personal taste. But it seems that this show, along with a lot of other shows, are pairing beautiful women with average or, in some cases, below average looking guys. And even though I said that the show reflects issues in real life, dialogue-wise and writing-wise, it does. But I don't know if you would see a guy who generally looks like Gus with a woman who looks like Mickey, or a woman who looks like Birdie with a guy who looks like Randy in real life. Now, are there shows that have like, and if you want to reverse it, I don't know if there are any shows that have, for lack of a better term, regular girls, a girl next door. Average is such a horrible word to say, but it's the only word I can think of right now. I'm sorry if I seem that I'm being very judgmental, which I might be. But are there any shows that have average-looking women in relationships with leading man types? I don't think so, and I think it may just reflect the control that some men still have on entertainment and Hollywood in general. And I guess an argument could be said that, well, if we don't cast good-looking women, we're not going to get ratings. So it's just based on that fear of the show not making money. If the show doesn't make money, you don't get to see the show in the first place. I think it might have other things going on with that. Guys just might want to see beautiful women, and I don't know, on a conscious level, maybe on a subconscious level, some of the actors are like, well, if I'm going to have someone play my girlfriend, I might as well have a woman who I'm really, really attracted to. I'm not saying the lead in Love or anybody casting Love thought of this. This is just something that I'm throwing out there. I don't know if it's necessarily true. I'm talking out of my ass right now. So, another miss was that it seemed like the dialogue lasts too long, and this is a big criticism I have with some of Judd Apatow's work, is that the improv goes on too long, where it's more like, hey, look, we're improving, and look how good we're improving, instead of moving the story along. So it's like, we get it, you can improv, please keep this going. We understand you're coming up with witty things, but it gets in the way of the overall show, and it slows it down. So if the fat was just trimmed a little bit, there is definitely a time and a place for improv, even though I truly appreciate how actors can take the written word and make it their own without adding their own thing to it. But one way isn't necessarily right, one way isn't necessarily wrong. It's just, I guess, in the matter of editing. So, and whether it's improv or not, it focuses on the character's neuroses for too long. And I think especially with Gus, like, I understand he has issues, but you don't have to hit me over the head with his issues. Like, we get it. He has, he wants to fix things, and he's very neurotic, and he thinks a lot, but the show just seems to do this over and over and over again. And another miss is that in the hits, I said, they really use realism. They really have issues parts of the show that we can relate to, but there are some situations of the show that seemed unrealistic, and two that I can think of happened to Gus. And now this is a semi-spoiler alert, so you can lower your volume for about a minute right now if you haven't seen the show. But, so, there was one instance when Gus hooked up with two women. It was at a college party, and they go up to his room, which seemed to happen relatively quick, but okay, I guess, again, they have to move the show along, they to get to their point. And so he's about to get it on with the women. They take their shirts off, and it's a little awkward, which is what I like. The sex scenes are kind of awkward, which is kind of cool, because in real life, at least my sex, or I think anybody's sex, there's some awkward moments in it. So it is that the show captures that beautifully. Girls does the same thing. But when Gus hooked up with the sisters, you find out that the girls are sisters. So a situation like that seems very rare. Now, I don't know if maybe it happened to some people in real life, but it just seemed very unrealistic. Or it's so rare that not too many people can relate to it. And I would like this show to be something that more people can relate to. I don't think a lot of people can relate to hooking up with two women at the same time and then all of a sudden having them be sisters. So, and then another unrealistic moment is then when Gus hooked up with Heidi, the woman who plays an actress in the show that he works on. And again, and maybe I'm just bitter, but I don't see a guy who acts like Gus getting that kind of action from an actress who looks like Heidi. And it just seemed rather simple. She seemed really into him really fast. And then one can say, oh, well, she was just looking to hook up with people in a position of power. But at that moment, Gus didn't seem to have that much power anyway. So, I don't know. Maybe she genuinely liked the things that he did and she was lonely and an actress. I don't know. It just seemed rather easy and unrealistic. So, and if the Heidi character wanted to get ahead, you figure she would go with someone in a position of power. But, I don't know, I guess she genuinely liked what Gus had to offer, and he was there. I don't know, it didn't ring true. So, but then again, I mean, I just might be bitter. So, okay, now, this is the very worst miss of the show, and I actually, during this part, had to look away because it was just so cringeworthy, and it just annoyed me so much. There were these scenes, and they did this more than once, where Gus and his friends would get together and they would write their own songs based on movie titles. And it was just, it wasn't so bad that it was funny. It was just so bad that it was bad. And like I said, I had to look away, and it seemed like whoever wrote this episode, whoever came up with the show, probably did this in real life and just wanted to show people, hey, look at this quirky little thing we do, and look how geeky we can be because being a geek is so cool now. But it was just, it was just so cheesy the way they did it, and it just seemed like forced fun, and it was just like, it just seemed to be like, hey, look how clever we are. And I got mad watching this part, and it was just something that I really didn't like about the show. But, yep, so those are the misses, but like I said, even though I did the misses last, I enjoyed the show. The hits were great, the misses were, alright, whatever. A show's not going to be perfect, but the hits were just so that, that when I watched the end of the last episode of the second season, it's like, oh, I want to see another episode. I really like the characters, I like the writing, I like the direction that the show is going in overall. So, gets my recommendation, check it out. Alright, bye.